we're learning what we're doing. I hope everybody is doing well. Tonight is Thursday, and I am here with my good buddy Steve from Happy Life Wood, and he's in my shop. This is my first live interview in the shop, and I'm happy to have you here. You just got back from a great trip. I don't know if we can talk about that, but that was an accident.
Yeah, no, you can talk about it. Thanks for having me, by the way. I really appreciate it. It's an honor. Thank you.
Dude, it's awesome. I appreciate it. So for everybody here, we're actually using two cameras, and one of the things I need to make sure, somebody let me know, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me over here. I just want to double check and make sure that the sound is good. I love you guys, and you're always good about that. And then Steve, in just a second, is going to tell us how he got started in doing this stuff, and really missing you here. Yeah, we both wish we were at Workbench, which is why we decided to come here and do this together, because you guys are at Workbench, and we're like, what?
That's right.
We're not going to Workbench. Right. We're going to have a great time together.
We'll have our own little party here.
Yeah.
The drinking will start afterwards.
Amen. I've got the plans already. So here's the deal. First of all, thumbs up. Thank you, guys. So Steve, Happy Life Wood, is going to tell us his origin story, because you guys know I'm a big fan of that. I really want to know, dude, your work is incredible.
Thank you.
It's all over. It's at BMW headquarters. How did you do this? How did you get started on this stuff?
It was really kind of just a mistake, to be honest with you. I was working a 9 to 5 in the corporate world. I was in marketing. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I have a degree in graphic design. I'd been doing it for 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I as everybody, I think, can attest to, it gets a little old after a while, a little stressful, a lot of politics. And I was just completely burned out. So I knew I needed some type of a hobby, and I had never done any woodworking, never worked with even any tools, nothing. And this is 5-6 years ago. So I said, you know what, I think I'm going to try my hand at woodworking just as a hobby. So I started watching YouTube's, stuff. I started, I think my first thing was like a little shelf or something, some DIY project. I bought a couple tools, and I just fell in love with not only working with my hands, but just that time that it took me to another place.
Yeah.
Literally took my mind off of everything else, and time just flew by. So, I wasn't bringing home work, work home with me where I was like stressed out, and I would get home, change into my work stuff and just get right into it and stay out there, far too long into the night. But,
that's what we all do.
So, I taught myself traditional woodworking, where I was building tables. I did river tables. I did coffee tables. I did, shelves and chairs and things like that. And, I have this creative side in me that always wanted to try and put some type of a creative spin on what I was doing,
right.
Because, when you first start out in woodworking, you really work from plans and everything's kind of like predetermined for you. And so I was like, I got to figure out something that's a little bit more original, a little bit more creative, that's coming from my head. And so it was my son's birthday at the time, and I had a bunch of scraps laying around. I had some scraps of walnut and cherry and maple, and I thought, I could probably use those and we're both big sneakerheads, and make him like a picture of a sneaker out of wood. And at first I was just going to do, and at this time I had absolutely no idea what intarsia was. I'd never heard the term, never heard anything of it. So I cut the pieces, because I had just gotten a scroll saw. I cut the pieces out, and I was putting them together like a puzzle. I made myself a template in Illustrator online, and started putting them together. Then I started sanding the edges and stuff. And this sculptor side of me just started realizing that I could make this look 3-dimensional.
Okay.
Even though it's 2-dimensional, I could give it like a 3-dimensional perspective to it. and I'll never forget the moment. And I had done a lot of it, and it was getting close to being finished, and I just had it sitting up in my shop. It was leaning up against a wall, and I looked at it. I'm like, holy shit, that's starting to look real. Like, I'm like, that's starting to look pretty cool. So I finished it. I gave it to my son, and he was just blown away. He's like, Dad, this is like, you're onto something here. You need to continue down this path. And I was all for it because I absolutely loved the whole process, everything. So my next thing I wanted to do was, I want to challenge myself and do a portrait. So it was around the time of Kobe's passing. I did the portrait of Kobe, and it took me, it was all through COVID, all the way through COVID. I was still in my job. So I was working from home, kind of, in the garage a lot of times working on this stuff. But so I did the portrait of Kobe. It took me about 4 to 6 months because I was developing my process. I had no idea how to do this. I after I had done the sneaker piece, I Googled wood art, and then Tarja came up, and I saw some examples and things like that. I'm like, that's very similar to what I'm doing. However, I'm kind of giving it a little bit of a different spin. I'm giving it a little bit more dimension, and I'm kind of like, whereas they cut out all the pieces, they kind of sand them individually. I was putting everything together and then kind of like sculpting it as a whole. So my buddy at work says he saw the Kobe piece and he's like, oh, that's really cool. And he said, do you mind if I post that on social media? Because I didn't have a social media presence at the time. I'm like, sure, I don't care. So he calls me not that long later and he says, Pau Gasol, who was Kobe's teammate and like best friend, just DM'd me, or no, he just shared it on his story. And then he texted me a little while later and he said, he just DM'd me, wants to know how he can purchase this piece. I'm like, I've never sold my artwork or never sold anything, And next thing I know, I'm on a call with Pau Gasol and his business manager. We're negotiating a price on this thing. And part of the negotiation was that he would post on his Instagram. And he had like, a couple million followers at the time. And when he posted it just kind of blew up, and I haven't looked back since.
That's crazy. So when did you quit your day job?
Right at that point, it was right around the same time. I just said,
I'm done.
This is enough. Things weren't good because of COVID where I was. There were layoffs, and I was just like, yeah. So, I just said, actually, my son said it to me. He goes, Dad, you're going to do this full time, and I'm going to help you. And he is, just so everybody knows, like, I can't take credit for the content side of things. I shoot it in my shop. Like I shoot all the video and everything, but he edits everything. He's very, very knowledgeable about the algorithms and everything. So, I always say, without one of us, it wouldn't work. Like he is just so good at that. And he said it right from the beginning. He said, I want you to be able to focus on the art, and I'll take care of the rest. And so we formed this this brand, whatever you want to call it. And it's my favorite part of the whole thing is that it's given us the ability to work together, and it's just great.
Well, I've said before that I think making videos, especially shorts, because you have to pack so much into that time frame, I think it's an art form of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So here he is, so here he's got one type of art and you got the other. And
I mean, it's how you're putting your content out there is really important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I think, it can make the difference between, a good page and a bad page. And, for instance, when we first started posting, it was doing okay, but we were like, we just felt like it should be doing better. We should be getting a little bit more engagement. Well, we soon found out that it was people didn't understand it.
Yeah.
They did not understand what they were looking at. They thought it was painted. They didn't know it was wood. There were a lot of different things. So that's when we said we need to be like blatantly obvious about this. And that's when I started coming on camera and saying, what you're about to see is, and then we literally spelled it out in a very, very simple way.
So that's a great point, though, because too many times we, as makers, I mean, myself anyway, I don't want to blatantly state something.
Right.
You know, I'd like you. I try to lead people to stuff. I'd like to teach them, but that's a good point. Like that is what you should be doing. They need to know that.
To be honest with you, even now, I mean, we see it all the time. Even now, people still don't understand it. I mean, I always laugh because I have so many people in the comments basically telling me that I'm a liar.
Yeah.
There's no wood that color. Because that's the thing. Most people don't realize there's all those different colors in natural wood.
So actually, let's talk about two things. Before I want to talk about the different woods that you use, and I want to talk about the colors and where you source them. But I want to take a step back because one of the things you said earlier was that you were developing your process, right? So I'm curious, as much as you feel comfortable, what is your process for developing these? Like, good example, your shoe. You got the shoe there. Can you grab that?
Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah. So this is the first full 3-dimensional shoe that I did. And this actually took me like 2 years. I had this idea in my head, but just never pulled the trigger on trying to really figure it out. I talked to a bunch of people that might be able to help me that, doing it with like a CNC or something like that. And it actually became, it turned into a concept that was much more simple than I thought it had to be. And that is, and if you watch my videos, we have some process videos of this. I basically cut out one side. I figured out, the width that the widest width needed to be, cut out, both sides, put them together so it's like a big block at that point, and then I sculpt and carve.
So do you plan it out with Adobe? Do you use anything like that? How do you, I mean, you said you were a graphics arts.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. I just did some content for Adobe a few weeks ago. As a matter of fact, in our trip this past weekend, we went to their headquarters and met with their team there. I've been using Adobe since 1990.
Oh,
yeah, because so it's really when Adobe comes into play for me is when I'm doing portraits.
Okay.
Because you've got to take a photograph and you've got to basically vectorize that, which means it's got to be solid colors. Right. It can't be like, a photograph is like continuous tone where there's like gradation and the colors kind of merge into each other. Whereas this has got to be very separated, blocks of color. And that's how I achieve that as in Illustrator. I make a template.
Yeah. You know what? It's very similar to what you would do with a CNC, where if you took a picture, you have to say, okay, this is a section I'm going to cut out. And this.
Yep. Exactly.
Can I see the shoe once? I just want to, and what I want to talk about here just for a second for everyone who's here. I wish you guys could see this, because one of the things I think is the coolest is the sole of the shoe. There's so much detail in the sole and how it goes. I mean, the whole thing is it's beyond cool, but I love the sole itself. For some reason, just really, this is what makes it a shoe. Like versus whenever you see somebody who makes some sort of design, it's just a flat, right? You went to all the trouble and got each of those pieces. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been fascinated with realism, and I've always been fascinated with anybody that can draw, sculpt, tattoo artists that can make something look real. Like a client of mine early on was Steve Butcher, who's one of the best realism tattoo artists in the world. And if you look at some of his tattoos, they look like a photograph. Right. I mean, it's unbelievable. So my goal is at the end of the day is for people to think it's real.
Yeah, well,
And that's my goal. And you can't leave out details if you're trying to accomplish that. You know what I mean?
Well,
you have to capture as much detail as you possibly can. And with wood, you are somewhat limited, so it gets pretty challenging.
so in terms of like the wrinkles and the clothes that you get,
Mhm.
right? Because that's one of the things that always, 100% honest. I love seeing that on the sculptures and everything because I think that does really lend the realism to it.
Mhm.
How do you look at that and be like, all right, well, this has to fold this way and this has to
Yeah.
fold that way.
I mean, I always take pictures and I use, I have a reference image that I use, but a lot of it's just kind of freehanding. Um, I don't know. I always say with what I do, the scrolling part and things like that, most people could probably do that. You make a template, you cut the pieces on a saw, you get good at using the saw, and it's really not that difficult. When I think it becomes more difficult is having to be a sculptor.
Yeah.
And to me, I equate it a lot because I've always drawn my whole life. I still to this day I do a lot of drawing and painting and stuff. And to me, it's like it's really no different. It's the same kind of concept.
Okay. So let's talk about yeah, it is awesome with the depth and the texture. I don't know if Evan's here, but Evan, have fun at Workbench Con.
Oh, hey, Evan.
My guy.
He's my buddy.
Yeah. So talk to me about the woods. Now, like you said, a lot of people see it and they're like, oh, that can't be real wood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at any, exotic wood chart,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly colorful.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the palette is really extensive. So, the hardest wood to find in color in wood is blue. So I tend to use blue mahoe a lot just because it's got some blue in it. It's not a true blue, but it's the closest thing you'll get. And that comes out of Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And I got a guy there that sends me it when I need it. The other one is holly that's white. People don't believe how white wood's not white, but I have a source in Pennsylvania that I buy holly from, and with the drying process, it's also very hard to find now. It's very expensive, but you can't replace that. Like in the beginning, I was using maple,
Yeah.
which is a very light wood, but it's got a lot of grain and it's got more of a brown, light brown or
You
whatever.
finish it,
So
it comes out yellow.
yeah, so
Finish.
the holly a lot of times it gets people a little perplexed, but actually the holly is so white. I mean, they use that to make piano keys out of.
Okay.
Yeah,
Instead of ivory. Yeah.
yeah. Ivory's white too,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think it's quite as white as holly. So yeah, there's yellow heart.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are familiar. A lot of the woodworkers are familiar with all these woods. There's purple heart. There's Osage orange that's orange. There's Padauk that's red. There's bloodwood that's red. There's I use a lot of Wenge because it gets really, really black. Ebony. There's just a lot of different colors, and a lot of times too. If you're doing certain things that maybe need a little variance in color, like for instance in hair, say somebody's got salt and pepper hair or whatever, like there's spalted stuff that's got that grain or that pattern in it that kind of reflects that.
I like that. Yeah. Well, spalted would be great for something like that. So what's the most exotic wood? Where has the wood come the farthest from?
Oh man, I used when I did the piece for Nike. It was the one that I had like 9 sneakers, and those colors were all over the place. I'm like, how am I going to achieve this? I used Osage orange, I used purple heart, I used. I think probably the most one that was the most rare was a wood called pink ivory, and it was extremely expensive. I can't remember where that comes from. I sourced it through like a Cook Wood.
Okay.
You know.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really expensive, but it's almost like a pink,
Okay.
like a pinkish purple. But it worked really well. Osage orange. I used poplar for green.
Yeah.
I know that can turn a little brown over time, but I think if I always tell my clients, that every year they should really hit it with some wax or whatever to kind of bring it back to life.
That was going to be my next question. How do you finish these pieces so that like we were saying, like with maple, you put on polyurethane or an oil finish and it turns it very yellow, right?
Mhm.
So how do you keep the colors the color that they are as you're making it so it doesn't change color and really change?
A lot of times I use a wax.
Okay.
I use like a paste wax, or sometimes I'll use a wax oil. With the paste wax, it doesn't seem to, it does make the colors pop,
Right.
but it doesn't turn it like yellow, or
Yeah.
maybe a touch sometimes, but
not a lot.
right.
Okay. I mean, that's amazing. So let's talk. We talked about your process, how you got started in this, which is just crazy. And talk to me about your shop and the tools. Like that's, So we're in my shop. I like to talk about woodworking and shops, right? So, we got my table saw in front of us with my workbench, right? So what are some things that you have? How big is your shop?
My shop is a 4-car garage, so I've got a nice size shop. Yeah, and a funny story about that is when I first started just doing it as a hobby, I was just making space in the garage and working out there. And then when I kind of got a little bit more into it, I'm like, I want my own little area. Like I wanted a shop. And so my wife basically said, you could have one bay, one car bay. So my father-in-law and I actually framed up, an area, and I lined it all with pallet wood, because I was using a lot of pallet wood in the beginning, which I think a lot of us do, So I lined the whole thing, and it was really cool. It was like, really felt like a wood shop to me. And then once I really got going, I started getting some bigger tools, and the fact that I was going to be out there, for my job every day, I was like, I'm taking the whole garage.
Yeah.
So now it's the whole thing, and my wife's great about it. She doesn't complain too much about it.
Well, I mean, since I called her Crystal, and I think that's how it was for a lot of us, right? We started off in, like you were saying, you made a DIY shelf, you made a little something here, a little something there, and then you find what you enjoy, and again, I moved into this house, and very similarly, this 2-car garage was my space here. I had a wall built in. And then I took out the wall, and the first time you came over, the wall was in.
Yes, yep. But you grow, you just, and even now I feel sometimes like I think every woodworker's dream is to have a big pole barn, right? I mean that's all of our dream, but you start to get into bigger tools, you start to get into more tools. Just because you start getting a little more specific, and there's a lot of different tools. Clamps. I mean, clamps take up a ton of space. Even though you can hang them on a wall, there's
still there.
There's just so many things that take up space.
So what's the tool that you turn to the most?
I mean, I use my scroll saw and my bandsaw a ton just for cutting.
I expected the scroll saw because you're a scroll saw artist.
Well, I not that I want to really get into any brand pushing here or anything, but a year ago I bought a Pegas. I have a Pegas scroll saw.
Oh yeah.
But I bought a Pegas scrolling bandsaw, which was a game changer for me. It literally was a game changer because it uses a heavier blade, but it's still thin, and you can still get incredibly tight cuts. And so those for cutting. But then I mean, when I'm sculpting and carving, I use a Fordham rotary tool that I use all the time.
Okay.
But I have to, I mill I have to mill all my stuff down. I'm constantly, needing to get at different thicknesses in the wood because that's how I get dimension. So I use a drum sander a lot. I use a planer a lot. I use table saw quite a bit.
Yeah.
Bandsaw, yeah.
So I was IWF, the International Woodworking Fair down in Atlanta. I was down there last year, and we went to Highland Woodworking, which is it was like the mecca of woodworking. This place was amazing. Well, the conference was amazing. This was really cool, and they had one of the Pegasus machines set up, and it was just I don't scroll saw, but looking at this, I was like, man, I could really get into it. Huge. It's got a pretty big table. Or?
They've come so far. Yeah, I can't remember the throat on the one I have now, but you could cut like a huge circle.
That's
but
nice.
They've come so far. I was listening to your live with Jimmy Dresta, and he was talking about using an old scroll saw back in the day, and I think he was saying, back in the day, the thing would shake and like vibrate all over the place. Now, they're so nice to use, and you can really, the amount of detail that you can achieve with those things is pretty incredible.
What was funny about Jimmy is that's where he started. In high school doing that. So I have a little Raycon bandsaw, so I'm not really great.
It's funny when I was at Workbench Con the one year I went, I saw him and I said, I think he was messing around on one of the scroll saws, and I go, let's have a scroll off right now. Let's do it. And we didn't do it, but he's a great guy.
So if you were to make a suggestion for someone who said to you, I want to get started in this, right? We'll come back to this question, I think, a couple of times. What tool would you suggest to them to really help them get started?
Scroll saw. Yeah. The only other way I guess if you were to really try and conserve and get multiple uses out of a machine, a bandsaw, because you can do relief cuts and you can get pretty detailed.
Right.
So scroll saw, bandsaw has a ton of different uses too. But in what I do, that would be, and you'd have to have a rotary tool of some sort.
Right. So what's the biggest challenge you've had in terms of taking these ideas and making them reality?
I think one of the biggest challenges I have a lot of times is finding efficient ways to finish a piece. And when I say finish, I mean sand, because it's, to me, that's where it can make all the difference in the world is how clean you can get something to look. So finding different tools to, gain efficiencies in that. And, because I do a ton of hand sanding, a ton. And that gets,
What do you sand them up to?
I go to 220.
Okay.
Yeah, 220. Sometimes I'll go 320, whatever. But pretty, most times, 220 is like glass. It's very, very, very clean.
And a lot of hand sanding. That makes sense.
A ton.
Well, I don't know how, especially with some of the really fine curves, how you would do that.
I found some amazing tools, and I try to share them every once in a while on my page and my stories and stuff, just because I know, one of the things that I found that I don't know if a lot of people know about are, and I stumbled upon these in Harbor Freight, but they're cones. They're little sanding cones. They're sandpaper that's wrapped in a tapered, and it goes to a pretty decent point. Yeah. And that was another game changer for me.
I haven't seen it. I have to go look.
Yeah.
I like Harbor Freight, man. I like going there. You can find a ton of stuff.
That's like a little playground for me. I love going in there too.
I have, what I always say.
Clamps.
They have little flux brushes. The little brush. I get those. I use them for glue.
Yeah. There's a ton of things in there. Yeah. There's really not much you can't find. Now, some of the tools are but when
They're
you're
better
starting
now.
out, that's the thing. Like you can get started now
Yeah,
at a
man.
reasonable cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna upgrade, but until you really get your feet wet and you understand what you're doing and you need more quality equipment, I mean, I think it's awesome.
Well, I mean, these guys have, if anybody who's been on my lives before have heard me say this, I like Harbor Freight tools because I think one of the biggest parts about them, and this is not a Harbor Freight ad, there's nothing here. The only reason I like Harbor Freight tools is because they're low priced. They're not always the best, but I don't care if I destroy it because it was low price
Exactly.
and I'm learning.
Exactly.
Right. So when you learn, you destroy a tool,
Exactly.
you're like, all right, I didn't like this. I like that. Now I'm going to go buy the Bosch. I'm going to buy whoever. Right. But I know what I need from my tool and I don't want it to have this.
I mean, I bought my first house, I don't know, in 1995 or something. And, when you buy your first house, there's certain things you have to do, and you try to do them as a homeowner. You try to do them yourself. And, like I said, I had never done any woodworking or used any tools. I wasn't, handy like that. And I remember wanting to put some molding up. And, I went out and I bought a hacksaw or whatever. And I got the little, guide thing. And it's like, I could never get good seams. And I was always so jealous of people that had a miter saw. And back then, I mean, it's like, I couldn't justify going out and spending what it cost. But now you can go buy one at Harbor Freight at a very reasonable cost. And,
again, not a Harbor Freight ad.
I mean, I'm sure you can buy them other places too, but back then you really couldn't. It was DeWalt or whoever, and it was, a good piece of equipment.
So you and I were talking earlier, and anybody who follows me knows I've had some issues lately with a particular piece, and it's really gotten me down. So I know you've mentioned that there are times when you feel low, like you don't feel. So what motivates you when you're starting to feel issues with a project, when you're starting to be like, man, this is just not, what motivates you? How do you come out of that funk?
Number one, completing a project is always really satisfying and gives you a good feeling. And I guess the other thing is, one of the things that my son and I have always kind of built everything around is hand delivering our pieces, capturing content, and just meeting the people that I'm doing work for. And, just seeing the joy on their face when I show it to them. I don't know, years ago, I did a piece for a family in California. Their daughter, I think she was 2 or 3 years old and had drowned in their backyard pool. And she reached out to me and I couldn't say no. And it was just such a heartbreaking story. And she ended up actually coming and flew to Rochester to pick up the piece. And it's probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in terms of feeling, joy, seeing somebody else really get that joy out of something that I created.
Yeah, it made a difference in their life.
Yeah. And that to me is a huge motivator, is handing that piece off and having people be hopefully happy with it.
Can you talk at all about?
Yeah, so I was just in San Francisco, and that's the other thing too. Like, I'm used to working in corporate setting. I always had coworkers, and there's a certain level of camaraderie there. You build friendships and relationships, and there's always somebody to chop it up with. And now I'm just by myself.
Yeah, that's tough.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm constantly talking with my son and stuff, but there's no banter. There's no, so that, that can be a little bit hard at times.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because it gives me a chance to talk to people.
I think this is awesome. I had said from the start that I thought what you're doing was really special. And I think it's great for everyone. So
it's a lot of fun. So anyway, back to this week.
Oh yeah, I knew I lost my train of thought. I'm getting old. So I was commissioned by the Golden State Warriors to do a couple pieces that are going to hang in the Chase Center in San Francisco, and so we flew out there and got to meet with their team and some players, and and then we went to a game. He
sends me a picture of him with Steph Curry. Right, so he's standing next to Steph Curry.
So yeah, I mean, those are moments. Those are moments, and the things that my son and I, because from day one, I kind of molded. I tried to mold them into stuff that I enjoyed, because then we could do stuff together. And I think that's always big with a father and son, is to be able to share in certain interests. And
can't argue with that.
So, I mean, the things that we've gotten to do about things that, with things that we're passionate about, whether it's, sneaker stuff, meeting, Tinker Hatfield, meeting, Matt Halfhill at Nice Kicks, working with Jordan Brand, Nike. Those are things that, that we'll never forget, that we get to do together. We've been in, I think we've been in like four or five stadium, basketball stadiums, courtside, and it's just,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So that definitely is something too that I always look forward to, getting a project done, hopefully, delivering it and just getting out.
Yeah.
Just getting out of the shop and I also, he lives in New York City, he lives right in Manhattan.
Okay.
And I try to get there quite a bit because I do have clients there and stuff. We take a lot of meetings, but I get a lot of inspiration there in the different, the different cities and different cultures.
Yeah.
It gives me a lot of inspiration and a kind of a rejuvenation, leaving my little small town and, going to a city and just seeing, the creativity and the what different people are doing. You see social media, and I think we all know that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Absolutely.
On social media. So to get out there and see real things in real life, hit some, galleries, some museums and galleries. Yeah. We like to do that. We're very into, supporting other artists and supporting other woodworkers and other makers. I mean, I look at what people are doing and I just have so much admiration for the whole community, just because it's hard, man. I know that those people are grinding, every day. And that's, hats off to anyone that's chose to even do it as a hobby and maintain some type of a presence on social media. But for people that are, actually trying to make a living at it, it's
hustle culture is real.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And like you said before, imposter syndrome is real too. That's something I think that we all go through. And right from the beginning, we made a very conscious decision to try and build relationships, because that's the key. Is relationships to anything is the key. And everyone was just so awesome. I mean, they just embraced and we built relationships. We took calls just to see what other people were doing and sharing tips and so it was it was really a good way for us to really kind of break in.
Well, I mean, this week is Workbench Con, and that's a huge thing. And and it's always fun to go to those places and hang out with people and talk about it. So, and I always talk about the fact too that our community is fantastic. You need help, someone will reach out. So
absolutely. So
coming to this, right? How has social media? Because I know that that's really been a big part of this.
Yeah.
How do you? Again, we already said your son manages that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing this. How does he manage it? I guess would be a better question. How does he manage it and get you the deals and everything? Does he? I'm curious what you know.
Yeah, he's just incredibly talented in working with people and developing relationships and recognizing the right the right avenues to take to get to the certain people that we get to. And it, I'll go back to saying that I listened to the Jimmy Dresta
Mhm.
live that you did, and I think you guys talked a little bit about brand deals, and
Mhm.
I thought we both thought that was really, really interesting because it was really dead on. He made the analogy that, it's like the pretty girl,
Yeah.
you're trying to, and you got to be cool or whatever it is, but it's true. I mean, it's, and you can't let that deter you from, you still have to reach out and,
If there's someone you want to talk to.
yeah, I mean, you do. I mean, not everybody's going to have that type of. I mean, in the beginning, it's amazing, to see where we've come from the beginning in terms of just getting a DM back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
right.
like in the beginning, it's like no response, and then as you get a little bit bigger, you start getting responses back. But
They
yeah,
know you more. They know. I mean, that's
yeah,
part of it. Not only are you bigger, they also know what you're doing and what you can bring to their table.
yeah.
And that's really a
Exactly.
big part of it.
Exactly. And but I did like I thought his take on it was really, really insightful.
Yeah.
But my son just, he's just really good at, like I said, building relationships and networking, and it's all
Yeah.
it's all a little bit of a game. It's like, you're really good. I've noticed you're really good at commenting and liking, and it's all part of it. It's all part of building your own brand and building your own presence out there. And I think it's good for the algorithm. I think
Yeah.
it's good for that, but it's just good practice.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day. My wife and I, we like to watch murder TV shows.
Mhm.
Where they're
I do
mysteries.
too. Yeah.
So we watch Bosch. You ever watch a TV show?
No, I haven't watched that.
Excellent TV show. If you guys ever want to watch a good show, Bosch on Prime, fantastic. And he has a motto that is everyone matters or no one does.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day, and it really resonated with me as I thought about it deeper in my social media. I truly do try to comment every time
Yeah.
someone comments. I try to respond because I think if they're taking the time to talk to me, I have to talk back. And,
Absolutely. It's just it's just the person you are,
Yeah.
and it's probably the way you were raised, and it's same with me. It's just,
Right.
like I said, my son, since the beginning, we don't ignore any DMs,
Right.
and I get tons
Oh, I
of
can imagine.
people, inquiring. But it's extra time, but it's just showing respect and showing that that everybody matters, and so we've always
like
done that. Yeah.
So let me ask you. I want to go to a different side here. You're making these pieces. Actually, this is a good point. Coming back to your shoe, you're making a lot of these pieces. You're getting clients. You got BMW. You got the Golden State Warriors. Do you make pieces that you look at and go, you know what? I'm inspired. I want to make this, and hope that you sell it. Do you? And the shoe, I think, is
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Well, we kind of came to a crossroads about 6 months to a year ago where we were like, do we continue down this commission based business, or do we look at maybe entering into the gallery exhibition world,
Okay.
where where I'm creating what I want to create.
Right.
But that whole world is it's crazy. I mean, it's very, very complex. It's like with anything else. You have to know somebody. There's groups that you kind of have to get in with. there's some sketchy.
Yeah.
So we were trying to just do as much research as we could, but we ended up looking at it and saying, because sometimes if you get kind of wrapped or like put into this category of social media artist, it takes away your ability to maybe be known as I don't know, there's credibility issues and
Like a
and
real
things like
artist.
that. Yeah. So
You were trying to avoid saying that, I think.
yeah, I mean, yeah, a little bit, but so we looked at it and like the beauty of it is I've chosen a direction in what I'm creating that I'm passionate about.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not going to take on something that I don't want to do. Like if somebody wants me to do, like a landscape or something, that's just not me. I get requests all the time for, could you do our company logo? And it's like, you know what? That's not
Right.
that's not where my, strong points really lie. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably do it, but you know what? There's so many other these unbelievable
Right.
sign people
Right.
out there,
Amazing.
these makers that could put me to shame. So I try to stay in my lane. I try to stay in. I love doing portraits. I love doing the sneaker stuff, the jerseys, anything that's deals with pop culture, fashion. Like there's a lot of different things that we're interested in, and we just try to stay. And I think I've built a strong enough body of work that says, okay, this is what this guy does.
Right.
So those are the people that are reaching out to me for the most part.
But like also for that one.
This one?
Yeah.
So I'm going to share something with you guys. I don't know if there's many people left on here, but I haven't showed this yet. This is my second attempt at a full 3-dimensional sneaker. It's the Jordan 1 Chicago 85 OG.
So crazy.
And this is we'll be sharing this on social media in the weeks to come. But
first of all, again, for you guys who can see this, obviously the sole is just incredible. But you can see. Let me see. It may be over there. There, you can see.
Yeah, you can see some of the. I tried, this one I really wanted to look worn. I wanted it to have character in terms of the creases and the toe box and the creases in the side, and it just, to me, it's more fun to do, and also it just gives character to the piece.
So this brings me back to like this basis of you're making things for people. They are contacting you. This is something you want to do.
Yeah, no, this is one, and then the other one were pieces that I've done a handful of them, and I think it's been when I've had some
downtime.
Yeah, some downtime. I did. I don't know if you remember the sneaker box I did.
Yeah.
That one with the sneakers that looked like they're on the top.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what, and I sold that.
Okay.
And a couple other ones, but yeah, for the most part.
So that's nice. I mean, that's got to be motivating as well. Like one of the things and again, I was just talking about this today. I feel kind of
one last look.
Yeah, dude. I got to tell you guys again, it's sick. It is so cool, and feeling it, it's just the neatest thing. I feel like if I don't create something periodically, I start to feel low. Like,
oh yeah,
emotionally,
absolutely.
Mentally.
I think we all, as creators, creative people, need to be creating, and if we're not, and we're not, I think we tend, and I think as creatives we're also a little bit more emotional people as well, and I think that we tend to take things a little bit harder, wear a heart on your sleeve, whatever you want to say. And so if you start questioning your self-worth, and maybe nobody wants to work with me now, or whatever. But you have to work through those times, and just I tend to be, believe it or not, I've always tended to be a kind of a glass half empty type of a person.
I would not have given that to you.
I mean, I try my best not to be, but it's just kind of, I think, in my nature. So I really have to work at remaining positive and knowing that things will work out.
Yeah.
And my son helps me through a lot of that too, because he's much more positive,
and he's used to it now.
He gets that from his mom. I mean,
you get the moody artist.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah.
it's fine, Dad. It's gonna come out.
Exactly. I think you must have been listening to our conversation.
See, for me, I'm the opposite. Like, I am always.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to admit this. I will never forget. I was dating a girl, and we went to a funeral, and I was like, at this point, we'd been together for long enough that we'd been to a wedding, a birth, a death, and I made some comment about, the only thing that's left is a whatever. And at a funeral, and she looks at me, and I was like, sorry, I'm joking around because that's just the type.
That's just I mean, different people have different ways about them, and laughter sometimes can be the best.
So I just want to talk to real quick the people on Instagram. We're still going to be going for more minutes because this will end after an hour. Instagram, for whatever reason,
kicks it.
Yeah, YouTube will still be going. There is a link in my stories and in my bio if you want to hop over there. One of the key things for those of you who are here next week, Adam Barnett, who is he's actually at Workbench this weekend, and he's doing a whole thing on social media and growing social media. So I'm going to talk to him with a focus on that next week.
Adam's the best.
I love Adam.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were talking to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I just want to let you guys know, as you're there, at about 9:00, it's going to kick you off. We're still hanging out and talking. And I got a couple, last questions and stuff like that. And so right now, where we've been discussing is, what you do when you get stuck and how you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, as this super creative person who's making their own art form, really, sneaker art, 3D sneaker art.
Yeah.
How do you hope that this inspires?
Oh, I mean, anything I do and I put out there, my hope is to inspire people. I think the fact that it's somewhat of a new art form. I encourage people. In the beginning, I was a little territorial about it. I don't want people to. I guess my thought process on that from the beginning or since has been, I welcome people to try it and do it. I mean, I've even talked about, teaching some classes on it and stuff. But
Wendell Castle Workshop, you know them?
Wendell Castle, that's in Rochester?
Yeah, right outside, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're doing classes and stuff?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, but I guess what I was saying is it's not for everyone. I mean, it took me a long time. And like with anything else, I mean, if you look at my beginning pieces,
right.
I mean, I've been doing it for like 5 years now, and the evolution is pretty mind blowing. I mean, but I do it all day, every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to, if you want to get good at it, it's like with anything else, you have to put the repetition in and the time and it's sometimes a little unhealthy, but it's all I think about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I said it in my video that I did, like I do have an obsession. There's no doubt about it. Like when I'm not in the shop, I'm researching different tools and different, ways that I can improve and get more efficient and get inspiration too. Like, there's so many. The one thing that I found out with social media is the amount of unbelievably talented people in this world
Absolutely.
that blow my mind every day. I stumble upon somebody that's like, wow. And so yeah, I mean, I hope I can be that for, certain people, where they see my work and they're like, that's really cool. I'd like to maybe try that.
Which is why, talking about that, and we talked about imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
which is why I showed that table that I messed up. Like, listen, I cannot tell you how badly I got dragged on Facebook. I got destroyed. People were so mean to me on Facebook. But really, the reason I posted videos of that screw up is because I don't want people to look at things that I've made and think that I only ever do well.
Yeah.
I want them to understand that whoever you are going to have.
I admire that in you. I admire that because I don't know if I have thick enough skin for that.
It was tough. It was really.
I already get enough, I mean, there's trolls in every, and everybody's comments and, I've had to learn not to take them personally. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think I have shown certain things that haven't gone right or, whatever, but,
not every day is a success.
Absolutely. You just got to work through it. That's my thing is, especially with woodworking, I always said that what makes a good woodworker is not like somebody that can, do the best piece or whatever. It's somebody that can fix and solve problems.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think. When I think of you, I think of a problem solver.
That's
what you do. And that's what makes you incredibly special and unique and talented. And I think that is a great trait, to be able to fix something that you screw up.
That's what I mean, not that I screw up all the time, but I like to come up with solutions, and I like to solve problems that.
I always hear people say, do you ever get to a certain part and then, it breaks or something and then you throw it across the room? No, I always know that I can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it may take me a little bit more time, but there's always going to be a solution to fix it. I've never, ever had to like start from scratch.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, so. I did because I screwed up because I put my CNC directly through a piece, but that's because there's a difference between 0.12 and 1.2.
Yeah, I mean, that level of detail.
Yeah, right. So, but the idea is that there's always something to do. So, where do you see you and this art in 5 years?
I still definitely want to pursue doing an exhibition at a gallery.
I think that would be cool.
I would really like to, display a body of work and maybe even do like a series of some sort. I just, I hope I'm doing the same thing because I love what I do. I feel incredibly grateful every single day that I can get out of bed and do what I do.
Right.
I'm sitting there in San Francisco this week, and I'm in the hotel little coffee shop, and I'm sitting there sipping coffee, watching people walk by, and I'm seeing all these business people walking in and walking out, and I'm like, how grateful do I feel right now?
Yeah.
That I'm like almost on vacation, but I'm sitting here. I don't have to worry about, answering to somebody or and don't get me wrong. There's certain things that go along with what I do now that also bring stress. But I like to be the one that's kind of creating or controlling the stress, not somebody else.
Right. You're in charge of everything that's happening right there and how it succeeds or doesn't succeed. And that by itself is fantastic. I mean, you're in San Francisco looking at these people walking by and going, haha, you're on your way to work. And my work is delivering this piece that I just made.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Right. It's like, I'm sitting here, I don't have to be over to the arena till like noon, so we're just kind of like we're out there exploring, checking out the sites. And so, yeah, it's just, it's a real, it's something that I'm really grateful.
I mean, it's amazing. The pieces are gorgeous. I truly, I said this before. I love the vision of them, and I love the way they look like cloth.
Thank you.
What's interesting to me is you said, you'd like to see a series or.
Mhm.
Why did I immediately picture like Jordan, but like taking a step and then midair and then the dunk? So you don't just have the Jordan midair. You've got each of the series.
Each of the steps of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that I think that would be really cool. I one of the things that I want to try to get a little bit more originality into my work, so that it's me. It's not a brand.
Okay.
I want it to be a Steve Thompson Happy Life wood piece and not a Jordan. And those pieces are, but I'm just saying, like I would love to do a series of portraits of just random people. You know what I mean? Not anybody famous or anything like that. Just so that the focus is on the work and not the celebrity. Or,
yeah. So I liked it. Well, that was like the one you did with Adobe with your father.
Yeah, and that is my favorite piece I've ever done. That was my mom came to me and asked if I could do that for his birthday, and that was like, oh man, I mean, portraits are hard, I mean, if you screw up one little part of the face, it cannot look like the person at all.
Right.
And here I am doing this, and my family is so familiar, obviously, with the way my dad looks, but I was really, really happy with the way it came out, and he really loved it, and he's probably my biggest fan. He always says, I don't know how you do what you do. I don't know how you do what you do. And so he really appreciates it. So I was really happy to do that for him and have it come out.
It really is. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's the coolest thing in the world. And, you got the joy of doing it for your dad as well as doing a commercial for Adobe.
Yeah. And it's kind of full circle. The whole Adobe thing is kind of full circle because, like I said, I've been using their applications for 30 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy to think they've been around that long.
I know.
Dude.
I know.
Dude, I remember being in college and I got to do this. I got to go to the computer lab.
Oh yeah, bring your floppy disk. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So when I was in high school, we had to take a typing class on typewriters.
Oh yeah, so did I. ASDF, JKL, semicolon.
Actually, the one that the line I will never ever to the day I forget is we would practice every day. Everybody wants to get ahead in business, and we had to type this, and there was a girl behind me, and I would start typing. And I would look at her. Yeah. I will, to the day I die, I will never forget that. And I don't think I've talked about that or said that for years.
That's hilarious.
It was always there. And, hey, so that was the day, man. I can't believe that.
Things have come so far. It's crazy.
Well, and it's interesting to think about the fact that things have come so far. I'm using my CNC to cut out these designs. Essentially, you have not come that far, even though you're using Adobe. I mean, really, what you're doing is so much more hand tool, and hand work.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how many people over the years have said to me, why don't you use a CNC machine? And it's just, to me, it takes away that handcrafted. I think it takes away a little bit of the charm. No, I don't begrudge anybody that does that and makes art with that.
No.
So I think it's awesome. It's just something that I've chosen to do, and it takes me a lot longer. It's that's the thing about my work, is it's incredibly time consuming and laborsome. And I think last year I did 8 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about. I mean, I can do depending on what they are,
Yeah.
like I can do, probably like 8 to 12 pieces a year.
Do they overlap, or do you focus on one?
I try and focus. I like to be absolutely focused on one until it's complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you get that pressure on yourself that, oh, this isn't done, I got to finish it.
Yeah. I just, these things take on,
Mm-hmm.
of they're literally my babies by the end of it. I mean, I look at them for a month straight,
Yeah.
and not only do I look at them when I'm working on them, but one of the things that I try to do is at night, I always take pictures every single day. And, at night I'll just sit there and kind of scroll through them and get kind of a, I'm not so close to it. It's kind of I've stepped away for a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it and I'm like, that part should be maybe a little bit different. And so, they just become very close to me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's actually even hard to hand them off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So two funny connections there. One, after I was done, I did built-ins in our living room.
Mhm.
I did a built-in bench, 2 built-in desks side, and then shelves.
That's awesome.
Years and years ago. Right?
Yeah.
And when I got done, I posted a picture, and I went back to the picture and I looked at it and I was like, oh, the shelves on this side were like 13 inches apart, and the shelves on this side were 12 inches. But it wasn't until I saw the picture.
Yeah, most people wouldn't even notice it. But
and then there was one other thing that
I think it just gives you a different perspective, and I always try and do that. And it also actually gives me motivation too, because sometimes I'll be so close to it, and then at night I'll look at my pictures and like, it's really starting to look pretty good.
Yeah,
and I'll feel happy about it. That's the one thing. Like at the end of the day, that's another motivator for me, is knowing that I worked and I'm this much closer to the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge part. And the only difference I have is that when I'm done with a piece and I give it to them, I enjoy watching them get it, and I'm very happy with the work I've put in. But I'm also very happy to have it gone, because that means I can focus on another piece.
Yes. I'm always really, really eager to start the next piece. It's exciting, to take on that next challenge.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing with me, like from project to project, I'm always trying to elevate and kind of like evolve.
Yeah.
So like I'm always trying to figure out like how I don't want this piece to appear the same as the last one I did. I want it to have an aspect to it that I've raised my
absolutely,
a little bit.
absolutely.
So that's something that really I think about all the time, is evolving. That's really important to me.
Yeah. Well, you either stand still, or you change, right? And standing still means that you don't do anything.
Yep.
Right. So I get that, and I can see the evolution even between the two shoes there.
Yeah. It's again, it's repetition and it's practice and just doing something over and over and over. You're gonna get better.
Right. The first time was I was learning. The second time was, and again, weird connection here. I see that with my jigs.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time I'm making a jig, and I don't record myself often when I make them the first time. And people, I'll show using something, and someone, how did you make it? What'd you do? I'm like, listen, I grabbed a piece and I screwed this on, and then I worked there, and like I'm figuring it out as I go, and I'm building it together. It's like,
it's kind of messy in the beginning, because you're just trying to figure it out. So you don't have a specific process yet. So you get to the point where it's the same thing with my stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, for the people over there, we appreciate you guys being here. You want to say anything to your folks who are still here?
Yeah, no, as always, I appreciate you guys so much. We talked about, motivating factors, and I don't think I mentioned that, the motivation that I get from my followers and people that support me on social is really probably the biggest one. I mean, from day to day, just the kind words and the encouragement means the world to me. So thank you so much. Yeah, I'll keep doing what I'm doing and hopefully sharing some cool stuff.
It's always amazing. I really look forward to that and seeing the jersey.
Yeah.
That thing is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Everyone, thanks for being here. Those of you who are here, brother, the first time I ever get to shake somebody's hand and say goodbye on camera. Like, this is exciting.
I know this was fun. This was fun. I'm glad we got to do this.
Dude, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, you're gonna have to hit the end over